Hey guys, how's it going? If you've been following along, you know that I've cut down my participation on YouTube just due to the choppy market, but I said I'd be back here when we have some potential opportunities, and I want to share with you something I'm watching, which I don't think is the best setup for a bottom, but I'm starting to see some indication that potentially we have a very stealth bottom. Now, in the backdrop, I want to emphasize that I think sentiment, is not quite fearful. I like to look for that as at least a secondary measure. But I follow sentiment traders. Bitcoin Optics has been very reliable for at least getting some swing bottoms, and we had almost a yearly low. I think we had one low this year that was lower when we hit this bottom. So it's reasonable potential that this bottom that is shown here in what is that December 18th potentially is a bottom. Now, my primary account that I've been sharing with my Elliott Wave Trader subscribers has been this downside count as shown, which right now projects to 6355. And to be honest, I'd ideally like this market to drop to 5500 for a bottom, but sometimes we don't get what we want in terms of that low price. So I'm watching this currently as a primary, but there's a potential that this turns early, and that would happen in this region between 6875 and 6700 potentially. So I'll show that in a second. But so I want to emphasize before we get into that given the sloppiness of this correction down, we've had lots of strong but obviously fake rallies that have fallen apart. That we have to be super cautious that we try to pick the bottom, to be honest. And that's the way I approach it. I look at every level where we can pivot and see how price action goes and see if we start to turn and take out resistance. And so far, nothing has lasted. And even if some level of resistance has been taken out, support underneath it has likewise been taken out. So we've continued to trend down. And I've kept positions small, mostly in cash since May. I had when I expected a top at 13.4, we were off by about $500. I've been largely in cash, except for when we had the potential to rally off of 78.50. I went pretty far in, but quickly stopped out before we dropped where we are at now because we didn't hold that support level. And it's the same thing, rinse, repeat. Let's see what this market does and see if we can turn and start to take out resistance. And then again, once we take out resistance, the question will be whether we hold support underneath it. All right, so I'm looking at this currently, but one of the questions I have about this is when I look at this move here, this doesn't follow the typical A equals C proportions that we'd want to see in this Y wave, which is part of a WXY that goes way back. And so I have to question at least what's going on there. And actually, if I have a lower 1-2, it's potential that this holds as a wave 4. It's a really ugly wave 4. I mean, honestly, not typical, but potentially then we have a fifth wave up into this region. That suggests that we can bottom between here and 6,700. Now, when I project down, I get likewise corrective structure, A equals C potential in this region. So I'm mildly short right now at this moment, really, really small, because this is a pretty good downside setup the way this is structured. But I'm going to take off that short in this region and see what happens. Now, in this area, you probably won't get an update from me on YouTube until we start to take out some significant levels above, but on Elliott Wave Trader, I'll be covering this live when we get to that region. So we'll look for technicals to remain divergent. We'll look for a tightening of volatility. We don't want to see volatility open up into support because then it will run through support. So we'll watch that, and we'll watch for an impulsive reaction. And again, I'm a good Elliott Waver. I want to see those 5 waves that suggest an impulsive reversal. Typical stuff that I always trade, and we'll see if it shows earlier than I had previously expected. I'm going to move to the alternate. I mean, if we have bottomed there, it would look something like this. At least this is my proposition right now, my proposal. This would be what I would expect. It's also, you probably want to look at this as WXY potentially. It really depends on the structure down here, but that's a little academic. And so if we have a wave 2 in that region off of the wave 1 as I'm showing, let me move that. So the circle 1, if we have that sort of proportions, then we'd expect a rally up to about 9,800. Now that has a really nice confluence for the first of the third wave that I've been looking for, which targets around 16,000 right now, if that bottom is in at circle 2 on this count. So looking at the typical fib structure, that would be these all line up actually really nicely. But before we talk about 9,800, we've really got to hold at the worst case, if I look at it from this point of view, with the retrace level at 78 of the 786 at 6665, I would definitely want to see that hold for this bottom here in this region. All right, so again, I won't be able to cover this live. You look at MACD, actually, it looks like we're rolling with it quite low. So I actually like the idea that we roll lower into that support level. But again, I'm not going to cover this live on YouTube. You'll probably hear from me after the fact, depending on whether we hold. But this is an area you can watch for. And again, if you're interested in seeing my coverage of this live, the free trials to our service, which will be in the link in comments, is available to you without use of a credit card. So you don't have to worry about canceling at all. It's just something to explore. And if it's not right for you, no worries. No one's going to come after you. You can just let it lapse and then forget about it. But anyway, that's where I'm at with this market right now. I think this is interesting. I don't know for sure whether it hold, but again, the way I trade is look at pivot points and watch price action within those pivot points, and day in, day out for good risk-reward trades, and I think there's potential here. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll be back next time I see some sort of opportunity, and we'll see how this goes. Talk to you guys soon.